All right, it is 7 o'clock, and I am going to start giving a tutorial on behalf of the wonderful organization, Ladies Storm Hackathons. You should check them out on Facebook. The purpose of this tutorial is to teach you about APIs, especially if you have no familiarity with them, and also to help you create a Twitter bot. So I'm going to pull up the slides without further ado. All right. Okay, build your own Twitter bot. Hey, I'm Alaina. I run Women in Computing at Northwestern University, where I'm a rising senior. September's a pretty special month for me. It marks my 2-year coding anniversary, or when I started messing around with Python for the first time. I never expected to be giving this tutorial, let alone majoring in computer science, and I'm so grateful to everyone who's listening in today. Since every good tutorial has a deliverable, I'm going to teach you how to build a Twitter bot. But really, it's more important to me that you leave with a better understanding of APIs so you can use Twitter and even more APIs in the future to make cool apps. APIs can be really intimidating to a new developer, like me 2 years ago, but really, once you get the fundamentals down, they're pretty straightforward and user-friendly. Let's get started. First, we'll define what an API is. Then, we'll talk about HTTP requests and how they let us access an API. I'll show you Communism, my amusing Twitter bot. Next, we'll do the necessary setup to get you coding and discuss Tweepy. Finally, we'll get to building your first Twitter app. So what is an API anyway? Well, this is the crux of the tutorial. I find it most helpful to talk about APIs using a restaurant analogy. An API acts like a waiter at a restaurant. If you remember nothing else from this tutorial, I want you to remember this. You give your order to the waiter, who relays your order to the kitchen where the food is made. Then, your food is brought out to you by the waiter. Similarly, an API takes in a request from you, relays it to an application, like Twitter, and performs the task you desired. So, in summary, think of an API like a waiter that will get you exactly what you ask for, assuming you word your requests in a way that they can understand. So, how can we ensure that we ask for stuff in a way that makes sense to our waiter? HTTP is our answer. Yep, this is the same HTTP you see in your current browser tab's URL right now. Simply put, HTTP is a specially formatted message that allows clients, or in our analogy, restaurant customers, to talk to an application, or the kitchen, through an API, or a waiter. Even more simply put, many HTTP requests are just a URL. One type of HTTP request is a GET request, which essentially grabs the data you ask for from an API. As a shout out to all my fellow Clarified champions, some of whom may be listening right now, the GET request URL that I show here accesses the Clarify API in order to perform super cool image recognition analysis. It's pretty wild that such a short URL can do something so complex. Let's break this down to really understand how HTTP is working here. Our HTTP GET request can be broken down into 3 essential components. 1, the base URL. 2, the image URL parameter. And 3, the access token parameter. Let's go through this piece by piece. The base URL tells you which company's API you are accessing. Here, it is Clarify's API. We know this since Clarify is in the domain name. This part of the URL also shows the API version, v1, and type, tag. The question mark at the end of the base URL is used to separate the base URL from its parameters. We have two parameters in our HTTP GET request here. They both follow the format key equals value, kind of like how you might define a variable in math. Parameters are essentially variables. It is important to note that each API has its own set of parameters for a request. The ones used here in this clarify example do not reflect the ones needed in, say, an API used by Facebook. But I'll briefly cover what they do anyway. The URL parameter is set equal to the URL of any image on the web, and the access token parameter is set to your unique authorization code to use the Clarify API. Most, if not all APIs, require some sort of authorization parameter in order to prevent the wrong people from messing with your requests. FYI, this means never share your authorization parameter with anyone. I know it looks like I have mine on the slide right here, but I actually changed it up, so this isn't really mine. You can't access my data. I tricked you. So these three things, the base URL, the image URL parameter, and the access token parameter, make up an HTTP GET request. Cool. So if you've heard about anything related to HTTP requests in the past, you'll know that GET is not the only one out there. I'd like to briefly mention the HTTP POST requests, since that's what we'll be using in this TwitterBot tutorial. The name itself is pretty darn telling. POST requests create or post new data to an application via an API. POST requests have a URL like the GET request, but they also have this thing called a body, which GET requests do not have. This body has more parameters that are not publicly displayed in the URL. We'll be using the HTTP POST request in order to tweet from our Twitter bot very soon. To access an API, plug parameters into a base URL. This is essentially how you access an API, even though there are other ways out there and other sorts of requests out there, but this is the essence of the GET request. There are thousands of APIs out there. I'm not kidding. This is why APIs should matter to you. There's an API for all the things, so why reinvent the wheel when coding a feature like Maps when you could simply call upon, like, the Google Maps API in order to get the same, if not better, functionality? APIs can be a huge time saver to you and are a great place for budding coders to start experimenting, and I speak from personal experience there. Here are examples of several wonderful APIs out there in cyberspace just waiting for you to try. Facebook has a well-known Graph API that allows you to access information about users, groups, pages, you name it. Dropbox has an API that allows you to manage folders and files. The Twilio API, that's that button-looking icon in the bottom left. Anyway, it lets you automate text messages and/or phone calls. The Clarify API performs super rad image and video recognition using deep learning. Ever wanted to see if AI knows the difference between a chihuahua and a muffin? Well, your chance is there with Clarify. The Spotify API, as expected, lets you stream music in your apps, but there are many copyright issues with using music that's even if you own the music, you can only distribute like a finite amount of seconds of music, otherwise you get into copyright trouble, so please watch out if using an API like Spotify. Google has many beautiful APIs in the world, but the Maps one is quite popular. Google has better location data than you or I or pretty much anyone else, so you should keep this API in mind. YouTube also has an API for embedding and searching for videos. So I know I just got you hyped with all the cool APIs in the world and you kind of want to like close this tab and like go build your own thing, but Today, we still gotta talk about Twitter. The focus of today's tutorial is Twitter, and I promise you that by the end of this tutorial, you'll have a super cool bot to be proud about. Explore those other APIs in your free time. So, what Twitter bot did I make that made me want to teach this tutorial? Wonderful, wonderful question. I made this super cute and fun Twitter bot called Communism. So, for those of you that are like English nerds like me and love fancy words, communism is a portmanteau or a combination of the word communism and Pomeranian dog. So essentially, as its name kind of says, it's a Twitter bot that tweets about Pomeranian puppies and then quotes that relate to communism, socialism, etc. This arose from a strange meme that my friends and I loved. So I made communism work in a few short steps. First step was scrape quotes from brainyquote.com. FYI, web scraping is getting information from a website but not using an API, so I won't discuss it further in this tutorial. If you'd like to learn more about web scraping or anything else in this tutorial, feel free to DM me on Facebook or tweet at me on Twitter, and it's at Alaina Kafkes. It'll be on the last slide in this presentation. So my second step was use the Bing search API to download images of Pomeranians. Why Bing, you may ask? Well, its API is free, whereas Google Image Search's API is not. Pro tip: watch out for avoidable costs associated with APIs, especially if you're not trying to bring your product to market. Step 3. Automate tweets that pick a random quote and a random image from steps 1 and 2, respectively. Well, that's it. That's Communism. I'll be simplifying the Communism code in today's tutorial, but if you'd like to see the full code, please check out and star that repository in the bottom left corner of this slide. I'll give you a few seconds to do that. Alright, so down to the nitty-gritty, we're going to talk about setting up your Twitter app. To be fair to everyone out there watching, I posted these instructions on Facebook several days ago in the event page for this tutorial, so I'm going to go through this slide quickly. If you have any trouble with this, assuming all is going well with this video right now, this should be up on YouTube after I stop this broadcast, so you can always go back and go through this. So the first step is to create a Twitter account, or if you have one, feel free to use your existing Twitter account. The next step is to go to apps.twitter.com and click Create New App. The next step is to fill out the name, description, and website fields. If you have no pre-existing website for the bot you're about to make, just put the URL of your Twitter account here, or like http www.google.com, like whatever, it doesn't even matter. 4, accept the developer agreement. Nothing shady is going to happen to you. 5, go to keys and access tokens. It's the third tab that should appear. Modify access to be both for read and write, and I'll show you what your screen should look like after step 5. So say you made another bot app, you go to this third tab from the left, or second from the right, however you see it, and go to application settings. So you see access level, you click on modify app permissions, and then change to read and write. And why this matters is I'm going to teach you how to create a Twitter bot that actually posts things, and if you just have read level access, this means that you can't tweet using code. You can only read other people's tweets. Cool. So let's set up Python and Tweepy now. Alright, once again, I posted instructions for setting up Python in the Facebook event well in advance, and that's because setting up Python, as with any I guess language or software or anything you need to download on the command line, things can and will go wrong sometimes. So I'm going to go through this quickly, but once again, please check out the YouTube video later if you're having trouble in this area. So I'm going to be using Python version 2.7 for this tutorial, but that's not to say that you can't use 3. Just know that the syntax might be different in some places, which I won't say out loud, but you can definitely Google or ask me after this tutorial is over. So essentially you will download Python, upgrade pip, which is a Python package installer that comes with your Python download, but you need to move it up to a later and greater version. And then finally, install Tweepy. Windows users, special shout out to you. So I'm using a Mac right now, and my command line interface automatically sets up Python shortcuts for me, which is wonderful, but I don't think that most or any Windows computers do that, so you are going to need to work through this nice tutorial that I linked you to, that github.com/burntsushi. Yeah, check that one out. It'll help you and do you wonders in the future. Cool. Okay, so what is this Tweepy thing? That doesn't sound like the Twitter API. Well, I'm about to blow your mind here. Sometimes, APIs are not talked to by using URLs. Well, at least not at the surface level. There are language-specific libraries that cover up all of the HTTP magic in order to make API requests super easy. These are called wrappers. Tweepy is a Python wrapper that sits on top of the Twitter API. We access the Twitter API through using Tweepy. To hammer the point in, what's Tweepy? A wrapper, like a candy wrapper. So why are we using Tweepy when we just spent all that time talking about APIs? Well, Tweepy makes accessing the Twitter API much cleaner. You could write lines on lines of Python code in order to craft the most beautiful HTTP request URL that I have ever seen, but in no scenario is that better than taking one line to accomplish the same task with a short Tweepy function. Alright, catch your breath here. We've covered all the basics about APIs and we can finally get to coding. If you remember that, oh man, what's it called? The keys and access tokens tab that I told you about earlier, you're going to want to grab your consumer key, consumer secret, access token, and access secret from that tab and hold on to them because we're going to start using them in code. And once again, I know this is a bit early for a thank you slide, but thank you for listening so far. And please remember to feel free to tweet at me with any questions, or like find me on Facebook, direct message me, like whatever you want. And then follow me on Twitter to get first access to these slides, the code I'm about to show you, and the forthcoming YouTube video. Cool. So I'm gonna do a little switch here. Gotta stop. Let's see. Stop sharing my screen. And then start sharing a new screen, which is my code this time. All right, let's see. Is that sharing? Well, it is. This is awesome. So instead of writing out code in front of you, I opted to just kind of walk you through this line by line to prevent, first off, my human error and hopefully avoid your human error, and so this explanation can go by a lot more intuitively. For those of you that have never used Python before, I'm going to try my best to explain this in the most beginner-friendly fashion possible. So, okay, just to catch anyone up that started listening to this late, we're going to be building a communism plus Pomeranian dog bot, known as Pomunism. So, first things first, we're going to import a whole bunch of libraries in lines 6 through 8. So if you've coded in another language, like maybe C++ before, you'll know about these things called include statements, and an import statement is essentially like that. For those of you that may have never coded before, Python is really a wonderful language, but it can only do so many things on its own. So sometimes you need to call on these little extension packs and import them and be like, hey Python, I'd like you to have this functionality as well. And Python will be like, okay, and then it'll suddenly have this awesome new functionality. That's the import statement. So as we just discussed, we're going to import Tweepy. We're also going to be importing random, and this is going to help us pick a random image later. Next, we import OS, and this is just a convenience thing for me, but it helps me get to and save the directory where I store all my images in a variable. And why this matters is because the file structure of the folder that I'm in right now with all the code has main.py, this file that I'm editing right now, not in the same directory as the images that I'll be tweeting. So as you can see, I need to go into another folder in order to access these images, and that's what OS will help us with. Also, FYI, I am using Atom, a wonderful text editor, and as you can see, in the upper left of this window, the file structure is shown there. Okay, so onto the body of the code. Cool. So I would like you to create a file in the same directory as your main.py right now and call it secrets.txt. And what secrets.txt should contain is this. You want your consumer key, your consumer secret, your access token, and your access secret. And all of these can be found in that keys and access tokens tab in your Twitter bot app information. So take a second and copy and paste them, put them here. It's important to note that you shouldn't put them in as strings, like you don't need quotes around them. You just put them in as they are, just a direct copy and paste. Wonderful. All right, back to our main.py. So now that you've created secrets.txt, we're going to open it as a file and then read its contents and save it in a special way. And the opening part is pretty obvious here, but the saving in a special way part is a bit not intuitive, especially to those of us that haven't used Python before. So just to show you what secrets looks like after f.readlines is run, secrets will be a list that has your access token, your access secret. Oh, I'm sorry, this is out of order. It will have your consumer key, your consumer secret, then your access token, and your access secret. Access has 2 S's. Anyway, and this sort of list format will be very helpful for accessing each of these secrets in the next set of code that I show you. And note that we close the file here because it is just good practice to tell your code to close the file, just in case you opened multiple files in the same code at once, but I won't go into that further because this is a tutorial about the Twitter API. Cool. So now that we've created this wonderful secrets array, we are going to create a bunch of variables that represents all the Twitter authorization information that we need. And we're taking that authorization information from the secrets array. Okay, so this looks pretty standard, like you're setting your consumer key to the first element of the secrets array, your consumer secret to the second element, your access token to the third, and your access secret to the fourth. In case there are any newbies to code here, since I know this was me 2 years ago and I wouldn't have known this, we start with 0 in computer science when we're accessing an element of a list. So 0 is the new 1. Just think of it that way for now. Cool. So the only like confusing part about this is this weird rstrip \n. Like what's going on there? So first things first, \n is the new line character. And the new line character crops up every time you press enter. I know you don't see it, but the computer sees it. So in our file, secrets.txt, there is an enter between all of these. And we don't want that enter there because if we present these keys and tokens and secrets to Tweepy, it'll be like, this is the wrong token, like you can't access the Twitter API, and you'll be like, but I copied and pasted it perfectly, like how can it be wrong? And that's just because the new line character's still hanging out there. So we have to take or remove the new line character from each of these. Cool. So in lines 33 through 36, for summary, we're just setting some authorization variables. Moving on, now we actually need to give our authorization information to Tweepy so that you can access the Twitter API. Otherwise, your Tweepy function calls will be rejected, which is vsat, obviously. So we use this Tweepy function, and in order to access a Tweepy function, we have to say tweepy.oauthhandler, since this function belongs to Tweepy, and then we put in the parameters, which here are the consumer key and the consumer secret. Then we add some additional authorization information using setAccessToken. We're adding this on to auth, and as you can see, auth is right here. So we're essentially pairing this stuff with this stuff. So Tweepy can share this all with the Twitter API. And then, now that auth is all ready, we access our API and we abstract it into a single variable by calling tweepy.api auth. Cool. So we got our Twitter API accessed. Wonderful. Now we can do kind of like the real stuff, like the actual like tweeting, getting images, posting, etc. So here what I did is I built a list of tweets, and I just hard typed these in. I just came up with some like cute sayings about like communism, you know, like I love puns, who doesn't? But in my actual communism code, I do something like a bit more cool and complicated. So if you want to see like a way to create a more exciting and like big set of tweets, like please check out that code or talk to me after this. So anyway, here's our tweet list. And a list in Python is essentially 2 square brackets, and then you have a list item, comma, next item, comma, etc., etc. That's what it looks like. So now that we've talked about the tweet list, we're going to set up a shortcut to my image directory using OS, like I talked about earlier. And just as a reminder, my images are all stored within this images folder, not in the same directory at main.py. So the images folder is full of the images, as you'd expect. In order to access these, we just set imagedir, which is the image directory, equal to os.get this image / directory. Cool. So now that we've gone through all this setup, you'll be surprised to see that the actual tweeting part of this code is literally 2 lines. So yeah, what we do here is we say for every tweet that appears in the tweet list, and there are 5 of these, make this function call. And now since I've messed around with the Tweepy API before, I can tell you that api.updateWithMedia simply means like post both a tweet and an image. So we take our image and we randomly pick an image from the image directory, and then we pick a tweet from the tweet list. So I'll give you a second to look at this just in case I went through the code too fast, and then I am going to show you what this looks like when you actually tweet it and show you this beautiful communism bot all functional. Alright, and just as a reminder, I promise I will do my best to get this into a YouTube video later, and then even if that fails, like, you will still get access to my code and my slides, and you can talk to me and ask me questions about any of this. Keep in mind that, like, no question is too stupid. Like, honestly, like, getting started with coding is like, what's the word? Like, a vertical wall. So, like, I've been there and I'd love to help you out. Cool. So I am going to switch screens again. Hey again, everybody. uh, and we're going to go to the lovely command line. I mean, on your Mac, if you have a Mac, like, you access this by looking for the application called Terminal. In Windows, oh man, I think it's called, like, you look for git bash. Like, don't shoot me if I'm wrong about that. But anyway, I'm going to show you how to actually run the code that we just wrote. So I am currently in the directory where main.py is, as you can see right here. But if you're not there, you navigate to it using commands like cd, which means change directory. Like, I could do cd image here, and ls lets you check out what's in the directory. Or if you need to back it up, you do cd ... That's your shortcut. Yeah, so just navigate to the directory that you were coding in. All right. And then for most of you, if you set up the Python shortcut that I told you to, for Windows users or for Mac users, this should be automatic for you. You should just type in python main.py in order to execute this file. Cool. Now, for me, since I have versions 2 and 3 of Python in my computer, I set up a special shortcut for running Python 2 code that is python 2 main.py. Just ignore this and type in python main.py. Your code should run. So I'm going to try out mine. It's a moment of truth. Wow, no errors, but, like, that was pretty boring, wasn't it? So that's what happens on the command line. What happens, or where the real excitement is if you go on twitter.com/communism, you will see 4 new tweets that I posted. And I'll just screen share this screen again so I can show you that what I did actually worked. One moment. Let's see. Aha! Cute little Pomeranians. Okay, so do you see this right here? Looks like 19 seconds ago, I posted a tweet. 20 seconds ago, I posted a tweet. 22 seconds ago, palms for comms, keep that hashtag trending. 23 seconds ago, or 58 now, whatever. And 1 minute ago, so I posted 5 new tweets, just like I told you I would. So cool. That is the essence of this tutorial. One moment, let me get back to my window. Okay, that's the essence of this tutorial. We just made a Twitter bot together. And if anything broke along the way for you, please feel free to reach out to me on Twitter or Facebook or anything like that. Like, it is probably a minor error at worst, so please don't freak out. Let me just share my screen where I have my Twitter handle so you can find it. Alright, yeah, so thank you very much for watching this Intro to APIs and Building Your First Twitter Bot tutorial. This is the first tutorial that I've ever given, let alone given online, so thanks for being a wonderful audience. And don't forget to follow me on Twitter or tweet at me on Twitter in order to make sure that you get first access to the slides and to the forthcoming YouTube video. Thank you very much, and have a wonderful night, everyone. Thanks.